And so this could be done by virtually anyone in especially America, where we have an abundance of people who speak other languages. This converts the economy and actually revitalizes it in a way that would be unthinkable under our current situation. So in actuality, this system could, over a very short period of time, give great prosperity to a population of people that are at the moment looked over, and it really would reverse the overall tendency of our system to neglect and be ignorant of a whole class of people. And that, of course, it is the global corporate empire has been developed out of those two things, out of our neglect and ignorance. And it is only through education that it can be reversed. Now, once a child at the age of about 3 years old has graduated from infancy into childhood, their education will become more intense, more complex in a gradual way than was infancy, and that is to be expected. And that is the overall trend of this developmental education system, is that the complexity and intensity of the subjects are increased over time gradually, and that the gradualness secures a kind of eventuality, and the eventuality will be the overall independence and intellectual critical thinking of the student can be assured at the end of this. And in childhood, the students will be educated in the 3 classical subjects of the trivium, which are grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Grammar beginning at age 3, and the real standout part of this kind of an education system is that there is only one subject per day, and that this subject would be broken up by recesses, practical recesses. They would be lasting for an hour, and their subjects would consist of things like agriculture, music, martial arts, meditation. And these subjects would be what would replace physical education, and really would be for the purpose of instilling responsibility, community, and things of that sort. They're practical recesses. Now, with time, once they reach adolescence, the students will have an expanded version even of those recesses, where different forms of more complex stimulation would be available to them given their interest in different subjects, but things like painting and art and things like that. But always they would have a practical purpose to their education. The other thing is, once they reached adolescence, they would have available to them new subjects. The expanding intensity would reach into math, geometry, music, and astronomy. And these are the 4 classical subjects of the quadrivium. Quad meaning 4, the 4 subjects. And this would complete the 7 classical subjects of liberal education. The idea being to liberate the mind and to instill a certain amount of critical thinking and capability in the individual. Now, once they have reached young adulthood, which would begin at around the same years as high school aged, the students would be virtually completely responsible for their own education. Teachers would be more like librarians at this point, and they would just be kind of information finders, bringing to the students' attention whatever interesting information they may be seeking out in the first place. Also, practical recesses would actually consist more of things like architecture, plumbing, hydroponics, and driving, in such a way that once they've gone through this system, they would be capable of making their own house, becoming independent. That is the point of education, not to bring people into a state of consumerism and dependence upon a overall corporate model of consumerism. It's disgusting. We need to have an agricultural renaissance in this country, and that agricultural renaissance has to come about through the education system and through our willingness to throw off the chains of empire and to truly transcend into a civilization, for once, a level 1 civilization. And this is the overall projected goal of this system that I'm proposing, is to actualize a level 1 civilization once and for all. And with that, with the driver's license, at the end of education, everyone gets their driver's license, which would also incentivize them to stay in the education system in order to receive it. Now, once they have received their driver's license and become an adult, essentially, once they are a productive member of society, they are granted the title or the privilege of citizenship, which is essentially the currency of a civilized system. Citizenship is something that only contributing members of society can have. People with the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness granted by God and by nothing else would have the ability to live freely like the Amish do, and they would have the ability to find their own way. But people who are citizens would have the privileges of citizenship, like free food, clothing, shelter, transportation, information, healthcare, and so forth. The incentive, of course, being to, be a contributing member of society. That incentive in itself is a more powerful drive, I believe, than the current capitalistic system, because I can work tirelessly under this system and just get enough to live and nothing more. And this is what puts people into a state of survival mode rather than liberation. And if we are going to live in what we call the freest country on earth, we may as well be liberated from the constraints of a financial Ponzi scheme system that really only keeps us down. So once a person is an adult with the title of citizenship, they have available to them centers for adult education. And what this will be is a kind of social gathering grounds wherein people can communicate with one another, they can experiment with various tools to really explore the interior world of their individual self, and for things of spiritual nature to be discussed as well. This is where the spiritual aspect comes into play in education, because adults should be mature enough to discuss political and spiritual perspectives and be able to have a dialogue continuously going about that matter, because that is the center of the human existence, of humanity in general, is the political and spiritual questions. And because we have a kind of mental block on that today, the result is ultimately the global corporate empire that we have allowed to crop up in these very complex times. So with that, I would just like to say that learning, love, and gratitude is a salutation to unity consciousness.